so much for wishing me happy birthday and singing to me. It's very special. I gave up sugar, so I didn't have cake yesterday, so I was kind of whiny about that, right? But you singing makes all the difference, so thank you. If any of you want to contact me after, because we're not going to get in a lot of kind of the nuts and bolts of the how-to, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is there. But before we get started, I want to play a little video for you.
Ding, 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 ding. There he sits inside your local coffee shop, sporting a man bun and facial hair. Somehow he believes, although he has no job, that by his 30s he will be a millionaire. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A-L. Gotta love millennials. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A-L. Gotta love millennials. She posts lots of selfies on her Instagram with a quote that's inspirational. Hopes to change the world while wearing yoga pants, armed with her dreams and knowledge of essential oils. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A-L. Gotta love millennials. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A-L. Gotta love millennials. 27 years old, trying to make it on their own. Maybe stop by leaving your parents home, but maybe we're just wrong. Criticism isn't easy for their ears. They feel like they know most everything. See, they grew up with undeserved confidence, 'cause they got trophies just for participating. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A-L. Gotta love millennials. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A-L. Gotta love millennials. In a couple of years, we will have to pass the torch. In a couple of years, they will be in charge, and one will be our president. Oh no. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A-L. Gotta love millennials. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A. Please pray for millennials.
All right, well, you guys are all clapping and laughing. That's the end of our presentation. But that little parody was actually created by Mika Tyler, and it was created to help us see through the millennial stereotype, to see what really makes them unique and powerful, and that's really what the goal of today's talk is. It's about seeing past the millennial stereotype and really understand that unique potential that the millennials have. They do get a bad rap. Go on to YouTube, and just about anything that comes up when you search for millennials pokes fun at the things that make them unique, right? That make them really interesting and powerful in this unique generation that we're going to talk about today, and really kind of perplex and agitate some of the older generations. So we're going to talk a little bit about what makes them them. And I am going to do a lot of generalizations, but I hope at the heart of all of this, you hear our battle cry. Gotta love millennials, right? Now, I'm not going to sing for you because I'm not as good as Jeff and Jeff is out there. But so who are the millennials? The millennials, some research shows that they're 17 to 42 years old. I think that's kind of hogwash, right? That's a huge span. So I like the Pew Research because generally generations are measured in 15-year increments. And so for today's purpose, we're going to use the age of 20 to 36 years old today. Like a millennial is about 20 to 36 years old. So that means they were born in 1981 to 1997. And I've been speaking to some of you over the past few days, and a lot of you have millennials. And as we were talking, one of the things that some of you had said was, I'm so glad we're having this talk about breaking through the stereotypes, because when people talk about millennials, my hair kind of stands up. That's my child. You know, you're picking on them. Don't pick on them. So hopefully today we can kind of see through some of that and really understand that, because we need to build that bridge. We're also going to take it a step further. We're going to split it right down the middle. Okay, so we're going to focus on the 20 to 28-year-olds. And the reason being in part is because they do tend to get a lot more of the bad rap than that 28 to 36-year-old. So why are we splitting it right down the middle? The oldest millennial was born underneath the Reagan administration. Think about that for a minute. The oldest millennial, according to this research, is born underneath the Reagan administration. What does that mean? During that time, that year, the word internet was used for the first time. The word internet. Rotary phones were in their home. Right? They were carrying around I had a turquoise one, right? They're carrying around one of these little boom boxes here and listening to cassette tapes, their favorite cassette tapes. They learned patience on Saturday morning, watching the standard bars. Right? And you're all telling your kids, move away from the TV, you're gonna hurt your eyes. Right? Because they were still on the floor. And if there were cell phones, it's probably Uncle Joe, who had a cell phone the size of a brick that eventually made its way into the kid's toy box. Microsoft released MS-DOS that year as well. We were using floppy disks. And this generation generally didn't use a computer until they were in about 6th grade. And their school might have had one computer. One computer for the whole school. I know ours did. We rotated through, and you know what we did on? We played Oregon Trail on dial-up. A very different generation. Kids went out to play. They played until dinner time. Parents had no idea where they were, and that was perfectly okay. And seatbelts were a suggestion, right? So it's a stark contrast to the millennials that we're going to talk about today, that younger generation. This is a generation, the youngest millennial was born underneath the Bill Clinton administration, right? Cable was bringing cartoons 24/7 to people's homes. There was television no longer went off air. You remember the time when television actually went off air? It just doesn't do that anymore. It's always on. This generation grew up in a world that was always on, and they were always connected. By the time that this generation was 15 years old, that digital divide had begun to close. And technology, smart technology, advanced technology, was in the homes of most Americans. The youngest millennials grew up in a different world than the oldest millennials did, in a more connected world. And they were more connected than any generation ever was before. And with every single share, and every single like, and every single retweet, feel-good dopamines are being released, right? And the phones are never more than arm's reach away, not just from millennials, from most of us in this room right now. It's changing the way that we connect with the people around us. So this generation has been, I don't know if you can read this, it says overserved, overprotected, overwhelmed, and overconnected. We've all heard this. But the reality is this generation was born and grew up into an age when the country was attacked by 9/11, and the graduating college students that had unsurmountable college debt were being thrust out into the workforce during the 2008 recession. So when 60% of millennials wind back up at home, let's think about that for a moment. They have more college debt than any generation before them. And they're making 20% less than their parents were at their age, adjusted for inflation. If they could have found a job during the 2008 recession. So many millennials emerged from college feeling burdened, anxious, worried, and overwhelmed. And this generation then became misunderstood, labeled by the numbers. Moms historically are pretty good about bragging about their kids, right? My Johnny's a doctor, and my Sally, she's a dentist. And now they have kids that are UI, UX designers and 3D animators, right? Well, millennials are out there changing the workforce and changing the world that we live in. They're leaving some of the older generations scrambling to catch up. And that feels scary. But we can't let fear stand in the way of building the bridges that we need to build to these millennials. And though this generation is labeled the generation of me, or the generation of IY, iPhone, iPad, iPod, the reality is that this generation, 7 out of 10 of them have done volunteer work. 8 out of 10 of them have given money or goods or services to charities. And 8 out of 10 of them have indicated that making a positive difference in the world is more important than professional growth and recognition. Right? The unique potential of millennials. This is an always connected, communicative, team-playing, and confident generation that believes that they're capable of doing just about anything. And they're always armed with their phones to tell their story. And there's not very many people better at telling their story than millennials, and we all can learn something from that. We all need to be able to tell our story better. So I wanted to share a little story that I came across while I was on Facebook looking through my feed. This young woman's name is Nicole Hines, and she was very good at telling her story. And she posted this on her page called Love What Matters. So I'm just going to read it in her words rather than paraphrasing, because I think she did such a nice job at it, and I want you to hear how she perceived what happened on this day. So I was just on my way to work, and I had to stop for gas. So I allowed myself some extra time to get to work. When I pulled up to the pump, I shut my car off and saw this middle-aged man crying, looking at the gas pump. I began to wonder what happened to this man, and as I got out of my car and looked at him, my heart felt like it stopped. In Apple Valley, Minnesota, it was 10 degrees that day. Freezing cold with the wind. This man was wearing flip-flops with socks covered in holes. I look at his car and see his wife in the front seat covering her face with her hands, and the 2 teenage girls both cuddling underneath a blanket in the back seat. I went up to the man and said, "Sir, is something the matter?" He looked at me, and I could tell he was on the verge of giving up, because he didn't even try to conceal his tears when he said, "I can't even provide for my family." Without even thinking, I put my card in his machine and I told him, "Jesus, the Son of God, died to provide for you. Fill up." Something came alive in him. He was in shock, as if he forgot how to pump gas. In that same moment, his wife got out of the car and asked her husband what was going on. And he replied that she just paid for my gas. She started to cry, came around the car to shake her hand. And when I saw her pants dirty and torn, I asked her to come to my car. The airport lost some of my luggage on my way to Minnesota from California, and I had to clean out my closet to find stuff to wear and get rid of a lot of stuff. All of that stuff that I had yet to give away was sitting in the back seat of the car and in my trunk. I opened up my car and told the lady to take what she wanted. A moment later, she and her 2 girls were digging through those clothes, layering my sweatshirts and shirts and sweatpants over the worn-out clothes that they had been wearing. Soon, the father had finished pumping the gas and came over. This attracted a little crowd at the gas station. Some older man gave the family a gift card, and another middle-aged man gave away his jacket to the father. Never in my life did I think I would see this kind of thing happen at a gas station with a handful of complete strangers. But it gives me hope that the love of God can be so contagious that we are not alone in being the change we want to see in the world. That God's love is greater than anything, and we get to be a part of that love changing lives. He always provides. Now, Nicole was able to see God's will that morning, and he was the guiding force. Others saw it too, and she was the light by which they opened their eyes and were able to see God's will. To think that a millennial, in the midst of all this chaotic world and trying to get to where she's going, and all the things that are happening in her life with losing her luggage and everything else, that she had a quiet moment where she could hear God calling her to do something. And that others could see that too. It's powerful. So the other thing is that her phone was on her. She was ready to post. Right? She was ready to post and tell that story. It was the first thing she did. She came back, and how beautiful was that story that she told, that she shared with the world. This is a critical generation, folks. We cannot afford to disengage with them or use labels to make excuses as to seek to understand who they are and what makes them tick. We are not in a generational war. Millennials are the largest generation alive. They outnumber baby boomers, and they're 3 times larger than the generation before them, the Gen X generation. We've already started to see the impact this generation has had with the rise of Facebook and the rise of a junior senator from Illinois to presidency with Barack Obama. Despite being hit by the Great Recession of 2008, the millennials hold over $2 trillion of global buying power. And just like prior generations were shaped by Pearl Harbor and Vietnam, this generation was shaped by 9/11, the Iraq War, and Hurricane Katrina. Though the numbers indicate a less empathetic generation, this is a generation of doers. They take on, and I mean head-on, issues that are near and dear to their heart. I want to share a brief video with you about a young man named Boyan Slat. And he's from Holland, and he's considered himself an inventor his entire life. And he's taken on a mission that was near and dear to his heart, and we're just going to kind of hear what he has to say about that. Whoops, let's go back. Maybe we're going to hear what he has to say about it, or I'm just going to tell you. There we go.
I'm not entirely sure whether I'm not crazy. Maybe I am.
As a diving enthusiast, Boyan Slat noticed that there were more plastic bags than fish in the water around him. So, at the age of 16, he instigated the ocean cleanup, an enormous but absolutely vital effort to rid our ocean of plastic. At first, he was told it was impossible.
Pessimism is what preserves the status quo, and optimism is what brings us forward.
Currently, he and his team are mapping the plastic by air, and they are testing the 100-metre-long prototype in the North Sea. By working with the best technologies and most innovative materials available on the planet, Boyan created a prototype that should be able to withstand the extreme forces at sea. On our planet, there are 5 garbage patches where the plastic debris circulates. In 2020, the ocean cleanup will first tackle the largest garbage patch found around Hawaii and California. This is how it works. A V-shaped barrier is placed perpendicular to the currents to collect as much plastic as possible. With its remarkable length of 100 kilometres, it's the largest floating object at sea. It's 5 times further away from the coastline than the closest oil rig, and it needs to be anchored at a depth that's never been reached before. To conquer these challenges, the ocean cleanup uses advanced technology and innovative materials such as Dyneema, the world's strongest fibre. It's 50 times stronger than steel and was developed by TSM. This allows the whole construction to move with the waves, making it capable of withstanding fierce ocean storms. The barriers are not built with nets, but with an impenetrable solid screen, which naturally guides fish and other marine life underneath, so they don't get stuck. Every 4 to 6 weeks, the plastic will be collected by ship from a storage facility at the tip of the V-shaped barrier and reused, recycled, or turned into bunker fuel for its service vessels. The operation will be self-sustainable and pay for itself. Boyan, what do you say to those who say this is impossible?
Human history is sort of a long list of things that were impossible and then were done. So I've been an inventor really for all my life, and just the feeling you get when you think about something and then see that become reality, I think there's really no better feeling than that, an act of creation.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting there drinking seltzer and watching Downton Abbey. Amazing, right? 16 years old, amazing, right? I mean, millennials are passionate go-getters. They want to make an impact in the world. And Boyan's story is nothing less than brilliant. They're out there. They want to make a difference. They want to do something that's important to them. And they care about wanting to serve God, to serve someone outside of themselves. But trust is really critical for them. Trust and authentic relationships. We see their head buried in phones. Yes, we know they're always connected, but they thirst for better connections, one-on-one connections, but they have to be real. No fake smiles, no disingenuous invites to groups or activities. Build a relationship with them, folks. That's what they want, that's what they need. Lay Christ out before them and see what it does, what it means to them. Day to day, not just on Sundays. They like informality, they like to have fun. Val mentioned earlier short messages. They're fine for asking quick questions. Exactly. Don't send them an email and expect for them to respond quickly. They want you just to send them a text message. If it's more important, send an email if they need to read something a little bit longer, but don't expect them to get back to you quickly. They want you to get back to them quickly, though. They expect it. Right? So, you know, they want this. They want this authentic connection, and they will allow you to walk beside them to build the kingdom of Christ if it's an authentic connection, if they trust you, if you are really putting yourself out there and having fun with them. Did I mention that, right? They want to have fun. They like to have fun. Give them leadership positions and opportunities to make a real difference in the world, and give them a voice, because they're really, folks, they're ready to rock. Build that bridge to them. For millennial parents, they want to make a real difference in the world as well, and they want to do something significant. And for most of them, that significant thing is being a parent. It's ranked number one. Being a good parent, ranked number one again for millennial parents. And there are 16 million millennial moms right now. Each year, there are 1 million new millennials that are becoming new parents. The next 10 years, they're expecting that to be about 60 million millennial parents. And they rank parenting, being a good parent, as number one. And their marriage is number two. These millennials, they want to do something. They want to serve. They're passionate about making the world better. And they're the most educated generation in human history. And they're ready. Now is the time. So I challenge you all to think about what it is that you're doing in your localities, what kinds of activities and groups that you're inviting them to that will really inspire them. That will inspire them with a deep encounter with Christ, so that you can build authentic relationships and form them into the leaders they were meant to be, and launch them into the world. Because they're the future of the church, and therefore they are the future of Regnum Christi.